Hi, everyone. Welcome to Living Overseas on a Dime. I'm Noel.
I'm Jenny.
And today we're going to talk to you about a topic that's a little bit different, and that's living and even potentially retiring in Canada.
Yeah.
Now, if you've been following our channel, you've seen our adventures traveling around the world last year. And we gave a little update a few months back about how we were back in Canada. So today we'll give a little bit of a summary of our experiences living in Canada for the last 8 months or so, and our opinion on living and retiring in Canada overall.
So we wanted to talk about today about what city we chose in Canada. We've lived in different cities over the last 20 years, but the city we chose was Ottawa.
Yeah, so we've lived in Montreal. We're originally from Winnipeg, Manitoba. We've lived in Montreal, Quebec. I've lived in Toronto, Ontario.
And we also lived in Vancouver.
Yeah, and I lived for a short while in Fort McMurray, Alberta. So we really have lived all over Canada, and we have a pretty good knowledge aside from maybe eastern, like the East Coast.
Yeah.
That's the only area we're not really familiar with. But yeah, today we're going to give you our opinion on what we think after living here in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, the capital of Canada, for the last 8 months. So why did we choose Ottawa? It's kind of an odd choice. Many people would think, oh, let's choose Vancouver, let's choose Toronto. Well, first of all, let's talk a little bit about the cities in Canada, because there are quite a few cities to choose from. Canada's huge.
Yeah.
It's a really big country. And, you know, it's pretty much famous for, aside from hockey, for its winters. And it does get cold. We're from Winnipeg, which is one of the coldest cities in Canada. But you have to really look at the weather when choosing a city to live in. You got Vancouver, which has very mild weather. You have the big city of Toronto, which many people are familiar with, and there's a lot of business opportunities. But we chose Ottawa.
Yeah.
Now, why? Well, for me, it was largely a situation of work. My background is in civil services, so I thought for sure, you know what? Why don't I try out Ottawa? Maybe I could get a job with the federal government. Well, little did I know what that exactly entailed, and we'll get into that a bit in the cons section of today's video. But needless to say, we chose Ottawa. So after flying back from Thailand, we stayed a little bit in Winnipeg to visit some family, and then grabbed our stuff, did a road trip out to Ottawa, where we've been since last November or so.
Yeah.
So, you know, here's our opinions on the pros and cons of living in Ottawa.
So the first pro is that it's really a safe city. We've lived in many cities, and this has got to be one of the safest cities we've ever lived in. It's also really, really clean, and you really notice that. So for us, especially coming from Winnipeg, which is not the safest city in Canada, we really noticed it right away, right? Now, if you go downtown into the core areas, it's not as safe, but it's still not horrible. Lots of people are going to be living in different places like Kanata or Barrhaven or Orleans or those kind of neighborhoods. So if you're living in one of the suburbs, it's super safe.
Another major pro, and this one is huge for us, is all of the green spaces. Ottawa is really unique with the amount of green space for such a major city. Like, it's hard to explain because there's kind of a weird geographical layout. There's the center part of, which is kind of like the downtown. You have the Parliament buildings, and then also some outlying neighborhoods of the center area. Yeah. Even there are lots of trails and places to bike and places to go.
You've got the canal there.
Yeah, there's lots of great things. I go down there running sometimes, and I love running down the Rideau Canal all the way to the Parliament buildings. It's great. It's a great run. And then you also have the green belt, which surrounds that area, which has lots of different trails and places to go. And then finally, you have the outlying areas of Kanata, Barrhaven, Manotick, and Orleans, which it's weird because it's like they're separate cities. I think they got amalgamated a while back, but even there are lots of hiking trails.
Yeah, like, I mean, a 10-minute drive from our house, we have trails that we can hike on. It's fantastic. So, and we're not like outside of the city or anything. Yeah. So usually every neighborhood, like we said, Kanata, Barrhaven, Orleans, those kind of outlying neighborhoods all have hiking trails and parks right there. So the green space for us is a major
It's amazing. And let's not forget the biggest park in this area, Gatineau Park. It's just across the river in Quebec, and it's in Gatineau. It's absolutely beautiful, and it's huge.
Yeah.
You can use it all year round. There's some incredibly picturesque places. and it's really amazing. We highly recommend going there if you're here. We've been there a few times
Yeah, we
hiking,
love it.
and we absolutely love it. So needless to say, we think maybe the strongest pro for Ottawa is the green spaces,
Yeah,
especially
the nature is beautiful here.
yeah, because we love hiking, and it's a very big thing here.
Another pro is that it's really close to other major cities. You're close to Montreal, you're close to Toronto, lots of places in Ontario, obviously. And you're also close to New York, Boston. So traveling to different cities is really easy. And like from here, you can take the train to Toronto, to Montreal. It's not expensive.
No.
Lots of people do it, or take a bus. You don't have to drive if you don't want to. And it's super close.
Yeah, and you can even take a train to Montreal or a bus to Montreal. And from there's a train to New York City that goes through New York State and the Catskills. And it's I did it quite a while back, and it's beautiful. And it brings you right down to Penn Station in New York. So you're right downtown. So it's really convenient. Yeah. And that proximity, there's even like you can go to Boston, you can go to the whole eastern coast of the United States. It's all within a 1 day's drive. Now, you have to have a car then. So you have to kind of look at it that way too.
But lots of people take the train or the bus because, especially for music festivals, there's lots of people don't come to Ottawa. So like, people I work with are like, yeah, we're taking the bus or the train to Toronto to see a concert. And it's super common here. Yeah. Like everybody takes the train or the bus to get to Toronto or Montreal just because lots of concerts don't come to Ottawa. So
so if you don't have it here, you can go somewhere nearby for it. So that
and it's close.
It's quite good. Now, this pro to some Ottawaians may seem a little bit strange, but we've lived throughout most of Canada, and we think that one pro of Ottawa is its weather. Now, of course, it's not balmy like BC or something like that, but I
don't know if I say BC is balmy.
Well, true enough.
It's not cold.
Yeah, but you have to look at it in a balanced manner. So first of all, Ottawa has a little bit of a longer fall. So for us coming from Manitoba, where often in October, end of October, we'd see snow.
Yeah.
Here it's more end of November, beginning of December. So you have a nice long autumn, and then you get a winter. Now, the winter here is real. It's not nearly as cold as the prairies, where you would often get minus 30, minus 40 degrees Celsius, but there's a lot of snow. And now that can be bad for your back if you shovel all the time, which we found.
Yeah.
It also can be really good if you like skiing.
For sure.
So, there's lots of ski hills around here. You can go even over to Quebec, the Mont Tremblant. And there's a lot of opportunities for different types of skiing, cross-country skiing, downhill skiing.
And all the hiking trails that we went on turn into cross-country skiing trails in the wintertime. So that's like in every neighborhood too, right? Yeah. Which we were really surprised about. So if you like skiing...
Yeah, and if you like winter sports in general, there's a lot of opportunities. Yeah. Canada is, of course, the hockey capital of the world. So, though the Russians might argue. But anyways... it's definitely a place that if you want to enjoy winter but not be stuck inside all the time, it's quite nice for that.
And don't forget, the canal freezes over in the winter, so it's one big skating rink. Now, last year was the first year, they said, in a really long time where it didn't freeze. So we were really disappointed that we didn't get to go ice skating on the canal. But apparently, every other year... you can go skating on there. So that's awesome. Like, it's supposed to be a really cool experience, and it just didn't freeze this year, just to show you how warm of a winter it was.
Yeah. So you got to look at the overall picture in relation to weather and see what you really want in a place. If you hate winter, this is not the place for you.
Yeah.
Definitely not. And if you're even scared of driving in the winter, also not the place for you. Though they do a really good job of cleaning the roads here.
And really quickly, too.
Yeah, we were really impressed coming from Winnipeg how quickly all the streets were cleaned, like the next morning after snowfall for the most part.
Yeah, you waited a day.
Not the sidewalks so much.
No.
But the roads were very clean very quickly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go into the next section here, which is the cons. Now, the cons, once again, are our opinion. This is not some sort of definitive guide, but our opinion after being here for the length of time we have, which we think 8 months is a pretty decent time to get an opinion of a place and the things that we don't like. So we're going to start off with the cons now. Okay, so our first con. We're talking about something that really covers a lot of Canada right now, and that is the cost of living. The cost of living has become ridiculously expensive in Canada. the amount it costs just to live now, most people really are required to, both parents or
Yeah.
both people in a household have jobs.
You can't really have a single income family
No.
anymore.
And if you're single, good luck. It means you're going to have a roommate, is what it means.
If not two.
Yeah, because places, our rent here is 2,200 a month, and that's considered cheap.
Cheap. Yeah.
For Ottawa. If you're looking at places like Toronto or Vancouver, we're looking at 1 to 2 bedrooms over $3,000 a month
crazy.
Canadian for a place to live.
And it's everything. It's rent, gas is expensive,
Yep.
food, right across Canada. It doesn't matter where you live. Food has really, really skyrocketed in price as well. So it's not just rent. It's everything, right? It's food. It's gas. Vehicles are expensive now. So
Yeah, to give you an example, I think most people's grocery bill has almost doubled in the last 2 years. Now, yes, it's inflation, but Canada has gone out of control. There's been a bit of a concern with Weston Foods, who's almost like a monopoly in relation to the grocers here. And I'll give you an example. Prime example for me, I've seen 1 pound of butter, $9. Now that's not like a sale price or anything. That's like a regular price for a higher grade type of butter. But $9 for a pound of butter.
It's crazy.
What else did I see? I think I saw a like $13 thing of jam.
yeah, it's
Like,
ridiculous.
what is the jam made of gold? Like,
Yeah,
really?
I mean, you really got to shop around for your groceries, right? But yeah, everything is just crazy. Now that being said, of course, when we were traveling, Turkey was so cheap, and Bangkok was cheap, and Mexico was pretty cheap for food. And so when you come back here, it's just crazy. I mean, it really is shocking.
Yeah, it really is. It's a huge sticker shock, and it makes living here that much more difficult. Yeah. And we talked a little bit about when we were moving here, and that I was going to be looking for a job. So I was looking for a federal job, and something to be aware of. If you're not here already with decent employment, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
Most of the best jobs here are federal government, and they take a long time. I waited for my first interview with the good jobs I was looking at was 6 months.
Yeah.
And then I didn't even get a tentative offer for a year. And not a year, I guess about 8 months. And then, this is ridiculous, that still required a security background, which was going to take 6 months to a year. So, needless to say,
have another job.
Yeah,
if you're
you
applying
need to
for
have
a
a
government
backup.
job.
Or a big bank account where you have tons of savings.
Yeah.
It can be difficult because now we have some other plans, which we'll get into in a bit.
Yeah.
But
needless to say, Canada is really expensive. So just
you need to have a big bank account or lots of savings to live here or make a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's the reality. I don't know how seniors on a fixed income do it, and I really feel for them. And but you know what? You need to plan this into your retirement if you're thinking about retiring. One little point, and this has been very recently in Canada, especially in the last couple of months this summer, is the weather. Now, what we mean by that is extreme weather events have become more and more common, especially the forest fires. Ottawa was hit in the earlier part of the summer very hard, where we were pretty close to the worst city in the world for pollution. Now,
there were lots of forest fires in Quebec. So we got that. Normally, I don't think Ottawa gets affected too much with forest fires, but there were so many in Quebec that the air quality was terrible here. And now we've got Kelowna is on fire, and even the East Coast, right?
Yeah, and up north, Northwest Territories, they had a major city to get evacuated. So it's showing you like things are changing, and the government has made some comments that this may be the new normal. And I got to tell you, that's difficult to live with when you can't really go outside safely for a week at a time. You're wearing masks all the time.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult to live with. So it's something just to keep in mind if you are considering moving to Canada.
So another con that we really, really noticed in Ottawa is the transportation. I'm sorry, Ottawa, but for a capital city, it's embarrassing. And you talk to other Ottawaians,
Sure.
I think they're called. They all joke about it. Like, the transportation here is terrible. You really need a car. Now, we had heard this, and luckily we do have a vehicle here. The buses are awful. They run like every 20 minutes.
If on time. Often they're not on time.
Every half an hour. The bus is expensive. I think a bus pass is for a month $130.
Yeah.
For not great service. And then they have a light rail train system that we heard this before we came here, and we thought people were joking.
Yeah, they're not.
It literally is broken every 2 weeks.
If not every week.
If not every week,
Yeah.
and then it takes them 2 weeks to fix, and then it's broken again. It's just crazy. So that, you cannot rely on that at all. If you're looking at getting a house, buy that rail system. Don't bother. You can't use it. It's always broken, right?
And so this also means you need a vehicle.
You need a vehicle.
So if you're thinking you can live in Ottawa, unless you live downtown or somewhere in the city core or close to your work, or work from home,
exactly.
you know, you're going to need a vehicle, and you probably need a vehicle anyways, because the makeup of Ottawa is kind of strange. And I'll go into that now just for a little bit.
Yeah, and this is another con for us anyways.
Yeah, so you have, it's almost like rings. The center ring is downtown. It's got the capital area. It's got Centertown and a lot of different stores and
that's
things.
kind of traditionally where all the government workers worked, was downtown.
Yeah. Outside of that is this area of nature, and it's kind of strange because it separates. There's even farms all around the city, and it's weird. And then outside of that, we have these satellite cities that are now part of Ottawa: Kanata, Barrhaven, Orleans, even Manotick, and some other smaller places.
And I guess that's Barrhaven. But
And it's just kind of separated. It's very strange.
Yeah, it's like 4 big towns that are connected by highway and roads with farms in between.
Yeah.
That
are far.
It's really spread out.
Yeah.
So if you're looking to live here, really do your research on what neighborhood you want to live in.
Yeah.
Because getting anywhere else, as we found out, really takes a good 20 minutes to get to the next neighborhood.
If not much longer.
If not longer.
Yeah.
So it's crazy spread out, and we really don't like that. You know, living in other cities is just not as spread out as what we've experienced in Ottawa. You really need to like to drive. So another con for us is, let's talk about the public culture a little bit. Coming from Winnipeg
And Manitoba in general, the prairies.
and Manitoba and the prairies in general, we find people are really outright friendly. Like
in Manitoba.
In Manitoba. You can be walking and people are like, "Hi, how you doing?" They'll just start up a conversation. If you need help with anything, no problem. People will talk to you, help you out.
The license plate says friendly Manitoba.
Yeah, and,
so
and it's true.
sense.
Here, people are not as outright friendly.
Yeah, they're very reserved.
Very reserved. I don't know if it's an Ontario thing.
Or a federal government thing.
We're not quite sure. Once you get to know people, great.
Yeah, they're great.
Super friendly. But on initial meeting, or even if you're just walking on a trail, people just aren't as friendly. And that has kind of taken us aback a bit. We like cities where people are a little bit outright friendly.
Yeah. And like we're biased with that coming from Manitoba, and maybe even from some of our travels, Mexico, Thailand, where people are so outwardly friendly all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Just take it for what it is. This is just our opinion once again.
Yeah.
And take it with a grain of salt.
And like I said, once you get a network of friends, and once you get to know people, they're great.
Yeah.
But just the public culture in general is a bit more reserved.
Yeah. So this leads me to probably my primary con. We said we love the green spaces. We do. They're fantastic.
Yeah.
And I love running there. I go for like 5-10K runs all the time in the parks. The problem is this. There are a lot of off-leash dog parks. Now, there are even not off-leash dog parks that have a lot of dogs off-leash. Now, if you're a dog person and you want to have your dog off leash, this is fantastic for you. You'll come here and they say this is heaven. There are literally places you can have your dog off leash where Fido can run after the ball and have a great time. And that's awesome, right? You can go do that. For me as a runner, I had about 4 dogs charge me in a 4-month period.
Yeah.
And I was doing nothing. I was just running. And it's not comfortable to deal with. I know it's not the dog's fault. It's 100% the owner's fault. And you know what? if you're not in an off leash area, keep your dog on a leash. It's
Yeah.
really that simple. But at the same time, like if you have children and you're walking, you don't know what a dog is going to do.
Yeah, our
And
son is pretty apprehensive with
yeah,
dogs, and it's the setup again is a little bit strange. There seem to be a lot of like dog parks by the trails where you can go walking. So the off leash area is in the park, and it says, and the dogs are all running around playing with their balls, whatever. And so a lot of people, what they'll do is just keep them off leash, go on the trail, and the trail will have a sign saying, put your dog on a leash. But people usually just keep them off leash on the trails as well. And we've had lots of problems.
it's different if your dog is incredibly well trained and will instantly heal and they listen to you.
80% of the dogs are fine.
Yeah, it's that 20%.
It's the 20%, and we've had some real problems with it.
It's not a huge issue, but it's something that you should be aware of if you're thinking about.
And we've
there.
lived in other provinces, and it's crazy here.
Yeah.
Like it just seems like it's not even an issue. And we've asked people to put their dogs on a leash, and they look shocked.
Yeah,
it's just like, okay. So just something to be aware of. So I hope this video helped you. We did watch videos on Ottawa before we came here, but like I don't think people really talked about how spread out it is. You really need a car.
yeah,
But then lots of people didn't talk about how much green space there was.
yeah.
If you like hiking, if you love lots of parks, this is really a city for you.
Now, is it the city for us? Sadly, no.
No.
I guess the kicker here was the work situation, and we were overly optimistic with the time frame in relation to me finding a job.
Yeah.
And why was I finding a job? Well, the market was a mess.
Yeah.
The market was a mess, and we wanted to have a buffer of a few years to see what we could, let the market recover, and then we could go back to doing what we were doing. But now the market's okay. It looks like it's coming back in a decent manner.
Yeah.
And we have some plans in store, and we'll let you know those plans right away. We're not staying in Ottawa. We'll give you that hint.
No, we're not.
And it's coming up relatively soon.
Yeah.
We'll have probably a few videos before the announcement.
Yeah.
But there's going to be some big changes with living overseas on a dime, and we're very excited about it.
Yay!
So, you know what? Keep watching. We hope this video is of help for you.
Yeah.
And stay safe and happy travels.
Happy travels.